platform came the shouting of the hunters in the swimming pool. On the end of the platform, Biggie was lying flat. Finally, we saw Biggie. I just keep looking for him. Where is Biggie? Where is Biggie? You see, so weird. Yes, like finally we have Biggie here. So now Ralph is like, keep telling him he was extremely angry right now, and he's even controlled by his anger. And he told them, like, I keep talking about children and I keep talking about smoke, and what you think about it, just bigs, bigs, bigs. He said that we won't meet. I said that, yeah, but I'm working all the time, except with no one except Simon. And he said that I'm working too. Ralph replied, no, you want to hunt. You do that because you like it, not because, like, it's important to anyone. And then they kept looking at each other. Like, again, we have a conflict again. So they have this they keep clashing at the time. As I told you, they kept clashing with each other at the time. So now we have finally Biggie. What was Biggie doing? He was lying flat, looking down into the brilliant water. People didn't help much. Like Ralph said that people do not help much. He wanted to explain how people were never quite what you thought they were. Now I'd like you to stop here because I'd like you to write a topic about this one. And again, Ahmed, I'd like to send me your topic. Do you think, like if I ask you now to describe yourself, how can you describe yourself?
I am Ralph, and describe Ralph.
No, I know, no. Forget about Ralph, forget about Jack. You yourself. Like if you were, do you think that everyone, I'm not speaking about you as young, teenagers. I'm speaking about every one of us. Do you think that each one of us understands exactly him or herself? No, like we think that we're clever and we think that we're honest. We think that we will never lie and we think that we are extremely close to Allah and we think that we are always right, mostly speaking. But in fact, if we we can never judge ourselves except if we were put in a test. So once we are in a test, then and only then we would be able to discover who really we are. Who are we really? Like that said, he wanted to explain that people were never quite what they thought they were. Like everyone thinks that he is brave and honest and clever, but like as long as there is no test, you can never judge yourself as being honest or clever and so on. You have to be put into a test in order to understand exactly who really you are. You see, that's it. So he said that Simon, he helps. He pointed at the shelter, and all the rest rushed off. He's done as much as I have. Only Simon Simon always about. They said that Ralph started back to the shelter with Jack by his side. Do a bit for you, not for Jack, before I have a bath. He said that, I'm going to have a bath. He even didn't care about his anger. He said, don't bother. You see that? He says that, don't bother. I can do without you. But when they reached the shelter, Simon was not to be seen. They didn't find Simon. They went back to the shelter, but they didn't find Simon. Where is Simon? We're going to know where he went. So Ralph put his head in the hole, withdrew it, and turned to Jack. Like he said, he buzzed off, he's not here. Got fed up, like Jack said that he got fed up and gone for a bath. He said that like Jack said that I'm fed up now. Like I'm fed up. Fed up, what does fed up mean?
يعني أكلت.
No, fed up.
Like I'm done.
Excellent. Fed up. When you say enough is enough? You
yeah.
extremely annoyed. Even in Arabic, by the way, in Arabic we have the same word, but I like, like in Arabic we have the same word, but I mean people don't use it that much. But in Arabic we have the same word in Arabic. Like when you eat too much, like to that degree, said that I am fed up, it means I am done. Enough is enough. And here he could have he could speak about himself, or even he could speaking about Simon. Like Simon got fed up and he gone for a bath. Maybe he spoke about Simon, and maybe he spoke about him. So he said that he's queer. What does queer mean? Queer. Remember this word is really important. Queer. What do you think? Remember queen and queer. What does queer mean? So okay, do you think it's positive or negative?
I think it's negative.
Yeah, what does it mean? Try think about it. Queer. Weird, strange.
Yes.
So the word queer, means strange. He's not normal. You feel like he's not normal. He's funny. He's not normal. So we are not going to know, even Ralph described him as queer. And when we know that how he represents, what he represents, we know that to what degree they were wrong. They were wrong, and he's the only one who was natural, unlike them. Jack nodded as much for the sake of agreeing as anything. So both Jack, he agreed with him that that Simon was queer. Queer means strange or odd or weird. You see. unusual, like, you know, it also could also means funny. It could also mean funny. So he said that here, and by the text like the consent means agreement. They left the shelter and went toward the bathing pool. Now they forgot about their anger again, and they went swimming. And then said Jack, when I've had a bath and something to eat, I will just check over to the other pass of the mountain and see if I can see any traces coming. He says that again, he's obsessed with hunting. Again, I'm going to eat and I'm going to have a shower and then I'm going to have a bath and then I'm going to see if I could see anything coming, any traces coming. But the sun's nearly set. He said, I might have this time. It is that, but it's going to be evening. It's going to be night. So how could you go hunting at night? And here, this quotation, I remember our doctor, like, you know, our professor kept speaking a lot about this quotation. Like they walked along, side by side, two continents of experience and feeling, unable to communicate. What does it mean? Now, like two continents. Who are two continents? Who? Amr. Who are the two continents? Who are the two continents? Like two, you know, two continents, right? Lena, Ahmed, you know continents. Imagine the author described both Jack and Ralph, despite the fact that they were walking along, like for example, Africa and Europe are like, by the way, next to each other. You know, like Africa and Europe are like two continents, right?
Right, yeah.
They're next to each other. Like you can just cross. Remember the Alchemist? The boy was able to cross from Europe to cross the strait from Europe to Africa within 2 hours only. And now, given taken into account the great advance on traveling technology and so on, like you can travel from Europe to Africa maybe within an hour. So two continents, but just, you know, is Europe the same as Africa?
What?
Europe the same as Africa?
No, of course.
Of course not. In what way?
Technology.
Civilization, like African people are famous for being savage and uncivilized and ignorant and developing. They're still developing. European people are known for. I'm not saying it's true, by the way. There are a lot of novels, like especially a novel called The Heart of Darkness, like give us the feeling that European were uncivilized, like African people are more civilized than European. But just Europeans. But just like here, like the point is, if you travel to Europe, you'll see a lot of civilization, extremely clean. People there, like, everyone cares about him or herself. When you go to Africa, you see till now as if you have a time machine. You travel back in time. That's it in Africa. So here the author used this one, two continents, Europe and Africa. Like here, put that in your mind, like walking along. They were walking side by side, but both of them represent a continent totally different in experience, having totally different feelings, and you were unable to communicate. Like Ralph couldn't communicate with Jack, and Jack couldn't communicate with Ralph. Each one of them has different experience. He had different experience, and each one of them had different feelings. He said, if I only could get a big, this is Jack. I'll come back and go on with the shelter. You see, like, this is Ralph. So they looked at each other, baffled in love and hate. So till this moment, they didn't know, do they really love each other? Remember the first time we spoke about them? Like they were working together. They felt both of them are leaders, and they felt they were friends, and they were helping each other with the log. I said that it would be very hard. He said that no, if we work together, it wouldn't be that hard. So at the beginning, we said that, oh, they were very good. They represent a very good team. But now they love and hate each other. All the warm salt water of the bathing pool and the shouting and the splashing and laughing were only just sufficient to bring them together again. So when they started, like, swimming in the bathing pool, they were starting laughing and splashing each other. Like they forgot about like their clashes, and it was enough to bring them together again. And from here till the end of this chapter, it's about Simon. Who reads this one and can summarize it? Where did he go and what did he do? And at the end here, we can know exactly what happened to him. Yes. What did Simon do? If you read the last two chapters here, in chapter 3, what did Simon do? Like, do you remember when Ralph and Jack went to see him? He wasn't there in the shelter. And then Jack said that maybe he got fed up and gone for a bath. You remember that? But Simon wasn't in the shelter. Where did he go? Simon was not in the bathing pool as he had expected. Simon wasn't in the bathing pool. So where did he go? Do you think where did he go? Where did he go? You read this part? Did you read it?
Yes.
So where did he go? Lena, Amr, where did he go? This is the end of chapter 3. Like I just like, this is a detailed description of like if everything he saw. And we know here, so at the beginning, like Simon, when the other two, when Ralph and Jack trotted the beach in order to look at the mountain to see the fire, he followed them for a few yards and then he stopped. And then he had stood frowning down at the pile of sand on the beach where somebody had been trying to build a little house or hut. Then he turned his back on and walked into the forest. Remember this. He walked into the forest. Why? With an air of purpose. It means like he purposely, it was evening, it was at night, but on purpose, he went into the forest. He was small, skinny, his chin pointed, and his eyes so bright that he had deceived Ralph into thinking that he was delightfully gay. Gay means happy and wicked, like the coarse mob of black hair was long and swung down, almost concealing a low, broad, forehead. So he wore the remains of shorts, and his feet were bare like Jack's, always darkish in color. Simon was burned by the sun to a deep tan that glistened with sweat. So I just like, I'm not going to read it word by word, but it's really, really good. But anyway, like Simon, on purpose, he went into the forest, and on his way, he saw like, a castle that one of the children was trying to build on the beach. And then he purposely went to the forest, and now we have a description of his face, of his like body and what he was wearing and so on. And then he kept moving, and he saw a lot of things, and he was even accustomed the treat. So it means that he was accustomed to the place and the way he was taking. And he just, he saw flowers and fruit. He saw flowers and fruit grow together on the same tree, and everywhere was the scent of ripeness and booming of a million bees at the pasture. This is very good. This is very good. Yes. Because like, like till now we see that the fires that they were waking was up the mountain, and now we have still the island was still pretty. The island is still pretty. He saw flowers, fruit, ripeness, and bees, million bees at pasture. And like, there were some children who had run after him, caught up with him. They talked, cried out unintelligibly, lugged him toward the trees, then aimed at the row of bees in the afternoon sunlight. Simon found for them the fruit they couldn't reach. So in his way, like he was walking on purpose into the forest. While he was walking, he already was accustomed to that way. And while he was walking, some children saw him and they followed him, and they wanted him to bring him some fruit. So he helped them the fruit that they couldn't reach. So it seems that they kept eating all the fruit they could reach. And now the fruit are very high. The fruit they couldn't reach were very high. By the way, American people think that fruits could be fruits. So you can say fruits are. British people say that fruit is an uncountable noun. So you said that the fruit was. So anyway, the bold of the choices from up in the foliage passed them down in the endless. So here what happens, like Simon helped the children, and he brought them, when he had satisfied them, he brought them all the fruit they wanted to have. The children watched him inscrutably over a double handful of ripe fruit. So he brought them all the fruits, like the fruit in a very high place. He brought them all the fruit they wanted, and he gave it to them. So it refers to the fact that he was extremely kind, and he helped the children. He was kind to children, unlike Jack. He was kind to them. He helped them. And then he turned away from them and went where his just perceptible path led him. Like he left them and he continued walking into the forest. And soon high jungle closed in, and he kept walking. And this is a description of all the things that he saw. And then finally he came at last to a place where more sunshine fell, since they had not so far to go for light. The creepers had woven a great mat that hung at the side of an open space in the jungle. So this was a clearing. Clearing? I think that you studied it at school. Do you know clearing? Clearing?
Yes.
Yeah, clearing. This is a place in the forest that doesn't have so many trees. So it's like very green, but it doesn't have so many trees. And mostly speaking, it's in the middle of the forest. So finally, he found this place. This is the whole place. Like the whole place was aromatic bushes. Like it has a lot of small bushes that has very good aroma, and like it has heat and light, despite the fact that it's about to be night, but he loved it. And he had a great tree fallen across one corner, leaned against the trees that still stood, and rabbit climber flaunted red and yellow sprays right to the top. So Simon paused. He looked over his shoulder, as Jack had done, at the closed ways behind him, and glanced swiftly round to confirm that he was utterly alone. So here, Simon was moving alone, and he made sure that he was totally alone, and he stayed there in that place. He stayed there in that place. He was like almost furtive. Furtive means like as if he was running away from others. Then he bent down and wormed his way into the corner, the center, sorry, the center of the mat. And like he went to the center of the clearing. It was very green, and it was like really good. And he had a pair of butterflies, and he squatted down, and he like what he was doing. What was he doing? What was he doing? Like he did nothing. He was just contemplating. He sat down, doing nothing, contemplating in nature around him. So now, what does Simon represent? Like when Allah created us, we had this kind of angelic part and devilish part. Do you know this one? Do you know, like people, are they, I told you that before, do you think are we devils or are we angels? Or are we both? Do you think are we angels or are we devils or are we both? Both of them. What do you think? Humans. Are we as pure as angels?
No.
Are we as bad as devils?
No.
But do you know that each one of us can be the same, can be like both, even within 1 hour? Can you know that? Can you believe that? And even in the Holy Quran, it was mentioned in the Holy Quran. فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. It was mentioned in the Holy Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, as I told you before, said that humans can be both. So Jack represents like the devilish part of human beings, the devil part, like the bad, like this kind of desire to kill and desire to hunt, and like paying no attention to others, and just caring about his own interests, and just trying to be the leader and trying to be mastered and respected by others, and trying to be followed, like like devils, like they have this kind of feeling, like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah glory to him, ordered Iblis to prostrate to Adam. Like he didn't, he refused. He said, أنا خير من خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين, right? He told them, I am better than him. I am better than Adam. So how could I prostrate to him? Like I am much better than him. The same with Jack. He thought that he was better than anyone else. On the other side, we have Simon. Simon represents the angelic part of humans, or let's say the spiritual part. The spiritual part. Now Simon left both of them, left Jack and left Ralph alone, and he moved slowly and in purpose. He knew his way, and he made sure that he was totally alone in order to enjoy nature. So he represents this kind of spiritual feeling when you away from any conflict, away from food, away from other fights, and just you and nature alone in order to meditate in Allah's creation. That is Simon. That's why when we know what will happen to Simon, we will understand that what would happen to the other boys as well, So far, everything could be not that bad. So far, like boys are not that kind of savage so far. Like Simon, is represents this kind of spirituality of human being, spiritual. And even it is said that people who have epilepsy are a little bit spiritual, some of them. So here we have Simon surrounding himself with nature and butterflies, flowers, trees, green mat in the clearance. He went there in order to have to be with himself, to meditate, and he was see, he said that holding his breath, he cracked the critical ear as the sound of the island. He was listening to the island. Evening was advancing toward, it was evening, and the sound of bright birds and the bee sounds, even the crying of gulls that returning to their roosts among the square rocks were fainter. The deep sea breaking miles away on the reef made an undertone less perceptible than the saturation of the blood. So as you see here, he was just trying to meditate alone in nature, to listen to the sounds of the birds, sounds of bees, sound of the gulls, sounds of the sea. He was trying to meditate, and he was trying to clear his mind. So he was that's why he was different like others. He was different than others. Other people, other boys didn't care about meditation into island. Rolf loved the island. He loved it, but he didn't meditate in it, He didn't care about how pretty it is, But Simon insisted in going in this way every day. Every day he went there in order to to meditate and to clear his mind every day. So for them, is it we as people, we're supposed to meditate. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in the Holy Quran, like, do you know it's some kind of worshiping? You know, worshiping ibadah. Do you know that if you looked at the mountain and the sea and the night and the day and the dawn and, like, you know, other kind of natural phenomena, don't you think that you'll be rewarded for that? You're going to be collecting good deeds. Do you think that, don't you know that you collect good deeds because, like, you meditate it, and when you meditate in these things, you glorify Allah. You know to what degree Allah was great. Allah is great to the degree, like, that Allah created all such kind of things, and this kind of nature is harmony. I don't think you've studied it or not. Like, did you study like nature? Do you know Emily Dickinson? Did you study Emily Dickinson poem on nature?
I think.
It is amazing. It is super amazing. Like, I hope, like, if we have one day, for example, if you finished earlier, we can read this poem. It is just 6 lines or 7 lines, very short, but it's amazing. Anyway, so this is the end of chapter 3. So in chapter 3, we see, like, the beginning, not the beginning, let's say the strong beginning of the conflict between Ralph and Jack. Jack is deeply obsessed with hunting. Ralph is obsessed with, like, you know, building shelters for children. Jack didn't care about children, and Ralph cares that much about the children. And we see Simon as representing the spirituality and the connection to nature, unlike others. Now we finished chapter 3. So did you
read? Have break, Salah?
Do you have like Ahmed? No, just a break. No, I think that we usually speaking, we pray al-Isha at night. Like, you know, we can keep it like at night. Okay. It's even recommended to pray al-Isha at night. I mean, like, somehow late, like a little bit late, before 12 o'clock. Okay.
Yes.
And okay, please, I don't like to get the infection. I hope that Muhammad did not infect you. So did you read chapter 4? Yes. Okay. So did you read chapter 4? I told you to read the first
6 pages from
yes, very good. Chapter 2. So did you read them?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, very good. So what do you get from them? It is just less than an hour, wallah. But yeah, just, you know, just less than an hour. So, and then you can pray. So, okay, don't make me feel guilty. Yes. So, painted faces and long hair. What does it mean? Painted faces and long hair. Who has painted face? Who have painted faces and long hair? Who?
I don't know.
Savages. You know savages? People who live in forests. They don't have scissors in order to cut their hair. So their hair keep, like, you know, being longer and longer and longer. And even they paint their faces in order, as I told you, in order to make it hard for other animals to spot them. You see? So what do you think here? Chapter 4 is a turning point. Remember that, a turning point. Nothing horrible, terrible will happen. Like, so far, almost everything is okay. They arrange water, coconuts in order to drink, and they made fire in order to be able to rescue it. And Ralph and Simon were trying to build shelter. Yeah, it's true. Other children are eating, bathing, swimming, playing, but we don't see any blood so far. Jack, till now, couldn't kill any animal, right? So what do you understand from the first pages of chapter 4? What's happening? I mean, like, chapter 4, the first, I think even the first 9 pages, all of them are description of the boys, right? Descriptions of children, and the description of Roger, description of Maurice, description of Henry, description of almost all of them, right? Right? So what do you, like, now? I will make it smaller, like the page. I just like you with your eyes quickly, have a look quickly, and tell me what you get from the first page. Quickly, yes. I will give you 1 minute. Like, tell me 1 or 2 points in this page. Only 1 or 2 points.
Like, maybe let's say that the life was beginning to be better.
Yeah, very good. In what way? Did they, like, here, the first part, it tells us that, like, here, look here, pleasure. Like, always when you feel like you don't understand it, look for the good words and bad words. So here we have this one. Like, they became used to, like, you know, they became used to. So for them, the island, they became used to the island. So it's not a strange place anymore. And then we have pleasures. And here we have bright. And we have whelming. We have sweet. You know, we have play. And we have good. And we have full life. full life, and we have was not like hope. Here, hope was not necessary and therefore forgotten. Like now, in the morning, everything is okay. Every morning, in the morning, they feel happy. They are enjoy the bright sun. They enjoy the sea. They enjoy the sweet air. Like they play. Like their life is full of is so full to the degree that they even forgot about like rescued. They forget about being rescued. You see, they even don't care that much about being saved anymore. They get used to the island. But this is only during the morning. So what happened during the night? But we don't have this yet. But this is what's happening in the morning. So the morning everything is okay. So the star colors of the morning were smooth, emerald, and aubergines, and the heat, as so its impending sun's height gave it momentum, became blow that they ducked, running to the shade and lying there, perhaps even sleeping. So when it is noon, like usually speaking, toward noon, they go and they nap, they take a nap. You see, because it is like really hot. And then strange things happened at midday. It's not strange thing. What's happening? The glittering sea rose up, moved apart in planes of blatant impossibilities. The coral reef and the few stunt palms that clung to the more elevated parts would float up into the sky. Now they started to see things, not hallucination, but started to see things. And even they said that it is just imagination. It is just imagination. Like Biggie like said that all this like just mirage, like just imagination, like what Sayyida Hajar saw when she was with Ismail alayhi salam, in Al-Kaaba or near Al-Kaaba, she started to see water. This is mirage. So here is the same. Like they said that never mind, it is nothing. Biggie said it is just mirage. And since no boy could reach even the reef, ever the stretch of water where the snapping shark waited, they grew accustomed to these mysteries and ignored them. So they didn't care that much about what they see, what they saw. Like they saw that there are things moving and so on, but they didn't care that much. In the morning, and even at noon, as long as it's clear, it's day, they didn't care. And then they had these illusions merge into the sky, and there the sun gazed down like an angry eye. Then at the end of the afternoon, the mirage subsided and the horizon became level and blue and clipped as the sun declined. So like now it tells us from the very beginning, how do they feel in the morning, at noon, during afternoon, and at the evening, and so on. That was another time of comparative coolness, but menaced by the coming of the dark. Now we have the morning and we have the dark, the night. When the sun sank, darkness dropped on the island like extinguisher, and soon the shelter were full of restlessness under the remote star. Remember, they do not have TV. They don't have TV. They don't have internet, and they don't have anything to distract their attention. So at night, all of them go to went to the shelter, but they were not comfortable because like restlessness. Children, remember, young children kept crying and screaming. Remember that. Then what happened? Nevertheless, the Northern European tradition of work, play, and food right through the day made it possible for them to adjust themselves solely to this new rhythm. So it's okay. They work, play, and food like they work sometimes, especially hunters or Ralph and Simon, and they play and they have food. So it's okay for them. They were able to adjust. What does adjust? Adjust mean? Yes, adjust mean. What does it mean?
يوضح.
Yeah, no, adjust, adapt. You know, adapt. يتأقلم.
Yes.
يتأقلم. So يتأقلم. So adapt. So it was لا يوضح معناه clarify. إنما adjust it means to modify, يعدل, or to adapt, يتأقلم. So anyway, starting from here, we're going to have one by one. Imagine one by one of the boys. Like we have the boy, Percival, like it's his name. He had already crawled into the shelter and stayed there for 2 days in the shelter, talking, singing, crying, till they thought him Betty, and they were faintly amused. Again, we have the word Betty. What does Betty mean? Again, I think we took it before. Why do you keep that silent? What does Betty mean? We took it before. Do you remember? Do you remember when Jack described the boys, the children, he said that they're Betty? You know Betty? What does it mean, Betty? Betty means sane or silly. You know sane? You know mad? Do you know mad or crazy?
Yes.
Crazy or mad. So they thought that he was mad. Like he was talking, singing, and crying. Like seriously, if you're afraid, you talk. but you don't sing. So if you see like singing, he was talking, singing, and crying till they thought that him Betty. Betty means insane or mad or queer or like, you know, crazy. And they were faintly amused. They were amused by, like he says that he's crazy, forget about him. Ever since then, he had been peaked, red-eyed and miserable. A little one who played a little and cried often. This is the first boy, young boy. So this is number one. So what about him? He was crying most of the time, and his eyes was always red, and he was miserable, and he cried, yeah, and he played a little. What about the others? Like now, okay, one by one, all of you, I'd like you to tell me what about the others? What happened here? I need someone, one of you, to summarize this part. One of you. You know what? The three of you. I'd like the three of you to read it quickly right now and summarize it. I don't like to read to tell me word by word. I'd like to tell me what's like the point of this paragraph. So I will tell you that one idea. Like here we have the smaller boys were given the name little ones, you know? Like now we have the boys started to have their own language. And even we are going to know that even the twin, you know, Sam and Eric, they're going to have one name. Like they're going to give them one name. So the children now are giving the title little ones, you know, it is their name now. The decreased in size from Ralph down was gradual. Ralph was the tallest one of them. And like this boy, Percival, was almost the youngest one of them. And between them, between Ralph and Percival, there were a lot of children, like different, like smaller than Ralph or like younger than Ralph, but older than Percival, and so on. Yes, what else? And then we have Simon and Rupert. Simon and Robert, Robert and Maurice. So Simon and Robert and Maurice, they were in between. They weren't too young, they weren't too old. They were between Ralph and the youngest boy. Yes, what else? And also we have Biggins. So the older was called Biggins, and the younger was called Littlens, and the other. So we have Biggins, we have Littlens, and we have in between. Yes, so he says that the undoubted Littlens, those aged about 6, they were 6 years old. Let quite, yeah. So here I'd like to describe this part. What about the children? This is really easy, by the way. Just tell me what happened to them. What were they doing? Yeah, 6-year-old children on the island. What were they doing? Would you like me to pick one of you to say to understand, to clarify it? Amr, can you clarify it? I can. Okay, Lena, start, honey. So Amr and then Ahmed. Lena, Amr, Ahmed. So now Lena, start, honey. So what were they doing? The young children.
They ate and they picked the fruit.
Excellent. Well, they could reach it. Yes, very good. What else? Yeah, it's true, because the word fruit, British people think the word fruit is uncountable noun. That's why they use it like it, refer to it as it. Yes, and they didn't care about the ripeness or quality. So sometimes even if the fruit isn't good enough or wasn't good enough, they ate it still. So as a result, what happened? They used to have what?
Stomach aches and
stomach aches. Yeah, it means pain in their stomach and chronic diarrhea. Yes. So this is really bad, like, because like, you know, it seems that they needed to go to the bathroom most of the time. Yes. And also they suffered this. It is not like, so it wasn't their only fears or problem. This is in the morning. What about night? At night they suffered from what?
The dark.
The terror. They were afraid in the dark and huddled together for comfort. They kept hugging each other to have comfort. Apart from food and sleep, they found time for play, aimless and trivial, in the white sand by the bright water. Yeah. So when they forget about their terror and they forget about it, they had time to play, and they, like, you know, to play in the sand, to build the castle. And sometimes they did what? Lena? They cried.
Yes.
For their mother. Much less often than might have been expected. Yeah, they cried for their mom, but not that much. They were very brown and filthy dirty for sure. Yeah, they were dirty and filthy. They obeyed the summons of the conch, so as if they were living alone. So the young children, like nobody cared for them. They were able to find food on their own, the food that they could reach. If they couldn't find, like they couldn't reach fruit, they asked Simon to help them, and Simon helped them. You see, or other boys, like older boys who were, like, you know, good enough, like Biggie, for example. You see, and otherwise they cried, they had diarrhea, they had stomach ache, they play, at night they feel afraid and just they scream while sleeping, and so on. And how they look, I'd like you to imagine a 6-year-old child without his mom, dirty, filthy, brown, and so on. But despite that, once they obeyed the summons of the conch, when Ralph blew the conch, blows the conch, they go partly because Ralph blew it, and he was big enough to be a link with the adult world, and partly because he enjoys the entertainment of the assemblies. Assemblies means meetings, but otherwise he seldom bothered with the big guns, and their passionately and emotional and corporate life was their own. Yeah, you see that here, you feel like children are living alone. Just, when every time Ralph, blew the conch, they joined them. Why? Because number one, they think that Ralph blew it, so they had to obey Ralph. They felt that, and Ralph was adult enough for them. And what else? The second one, they felt like, they entertained the assembly. They felt like funny. It was funny. Like assemblies were funny. That's why they joined them. But otherwise, they were living on their own life. They didn't care that much about big ones, like, big children. Okay. Now, very good, Lena. Very good, honey. Now, what did they do else? What else did they do? Ahmed or Amr, one of you. What else? Who can summarize this part quickly? What else they did they do?
Can I say?
Yes, sure.
They had built castles.
Yes.
And decorated it with flowers and stones.
Yeah, cute. So it's like very, very young. So what did they do? They built castle in the beach, in the sand on the bar, and just, their castle were about 1 foot high, very small, and were decorated with shells, withered flowers, and interesting stones. You see? Yes. And what else? Very good. What else?
Yes, and they are talking about what they make around the castle. Around the castle was there was marks, tracks, walls, railway lines.
Yes. So what is this? What is this? Have you where would we able to see tracks and walls, railway lines, as where? In cities or in open air, in forests?
And cities, of course.
So till now they remember the civilization, and they remember Britain, and they remember their cities. You see, and they would like to go back, the children. So even when they built castles, they made railway lines and walls, they built them as well, because they would like to go back. This is a sign of civilization. So far they are still civilized. Yes. And what else? They played here, if not happily, at least with absorbed attention, and often as many as 3 of them would play the same game together. So they were playing together, and they were remembering, they remembered the civilization and what was there in England, and railway stations, and, houses, and so on. So they were remembering. So this is a sign that even children were still civilized. Yes. So now here we have a description of 3 boys were playing. So now, Amr, I'd like you to summarize the following part. Now we have 3 children who were playing. Who were playing? Who were playing, Amr? Amr, I'd like you to just, summarize that part. And then Lena, the following part. And then Ahmed, the following part, and so on. Yes. So Amr, what happened here?